everybody, I'm Margaret Mulligan. I'm the author of this story here, Katy Parker and the House That Cried. It's a fun time slip adventure set in the current day and the Second World War. I'm going to read you the first chapter today, and if you like it, let me know and I'll read you the second chapter tomorrow. And this is my dog Scout, who's going to listen and join in with us. Okay, so I'm just going to start with chapter 1 today. The Crying Child. Adrenaline surged through Katy's body as she ran towards the bike lying on the pavement. Reaching down, she picked it up and in one swift movement leapt onto the seat. Turning around, she called out urgently to an unseen companion, "Hurry up! Faster! Follow me!" For a moment she faltered, feet slipping off the pedals, losing precious seconds before righting herself and then pedalling furiously ahead. The thud of her heart filled her ears. "Katy!" A terror-filled voice howled out her name as time and space seamlessly merged. Everything began to move in slow motion, and all at once a mighty whoosh of blistering heat, choking smoke and blinding white light engulfed her. Katy felt herself lifted up into the air, gliding through it, weightless, limp, and out of control. Within seconds she felt herself falling down, further and further into the void below. Katy braced for impact, fists tightly clenched, eyes squeezed shut, when, with a sharp intake of breath, she jolted upright, suddenly awake. Opening her eyes, she saw with relief the familiar surroundings of her bedroom. Sunlight seeped in beneath the curtains, casting a comforting warm glow over the room. Katy turned to look at her bedside clock. The luminous yellow figures read 6 o'clock. Almost time to get up. Sighing deeply, she sank back onto her pillow. Her body, still rigid with tension, began to relax as relief gently washed over her. It was, after all, just her dream. Ever since her 10th birthday, she'd been tormented by this recurring nightmare. It followed the same pattern every year, beginning in spring and becoming more frequent and more vivid until mid-May, then simply disappearing. Katy never saw who was with her or what it was she was trying to escape. Instead, she woke at precisely 6 o'clock every morning, just as she began to plummet into the void. Gradually, as her heart rate slowed and her breathing relaxed, Katy's mind began to wander away from her nightmare, and she began to recall the previous afternoon's events with Lizzie, her best friend. They'd called into the local library after school to do some research. Lizzie had found an ancient, dusty reference book, too heavy to carry, called Dreams Unlocked. "Read this, Katy. It fits your dream." Katy leant over and began reading aloud. Recurring dreams should never be ignored. They are the subconscious mind's way of trying to communicate an important message to you. "Well, your dream must be really important if you're having the dream so often. I wonder what it is," said Lizzie. Katy read on. "Dreams in which you are running away from an unseen danger are common. You must stop yourself running, turn around and face what you fear. It is your destiny. You cannot escape it." "That's just like your dream," said Lizzie. "We've just got to figure out who you're escaping from. Are you sure you can't see who's with you or even recognise their voice?" Katy squeezed her eyes shut, running through the images in her head. "Oh, it's hopeless," she sighed. "I've no idea. They're always out of sight." "Well, if what the book says is true, then a really important event or person is awaiting for you. And in the meantime, they're desperately trying to get your attention. You just got to face your fear," reflected Lizzie, giving a self-satisfied smile. "Easier said than done," thought Katy, huffing and crossly pummeling her pillow. Feeling utterly exhausted and frustrated, she pulled the covers over her head. None of it made any sense. Last week, her mum had even taken her to the doctor to see if he could help, but he had just said she'd outgrow the dream eventually and suggested a milky drink and a warm bath at bedtime, none of which seemed to make any difference. In desperation, her mum had started to sprinkle lavender water on the pillow. Apparently, it was meant to promote a peaceful night's sleep. What a joke. If anything, the dream had become more frequent and even more real. Katy knew it was impossible, but she was sure she could even taste smoke at the back of her throat and smell its acrid scent on her nightclothes and in her hair. Determined to make the most of the little time left before she had to get up, Katy pushed all thoughts of her dream aside, slid her hand under the pillow and retrieved the card. She had found it pushed under the door of her school locker and hadn't told anybody but Lizzie about it. The front of the card showed The Kiss by Klimt, Katy's favourite painting. She even had a poster of it in her bedroom. It showed a gilded couple wrapped in a brilliant golden quilt. Opening it, she reread the words written inside. To Katy, meet me in room 76 tomorrow at the start of lunch. I need to talk to you. Come on your own. T.A. Her heart began racing again, but this time with excitement. Could it really be from Tom Austin? Would he really be waiting for her at lunch? She could see him clearly. Tall, athletic, blonde hair. He looked effortlessly cool, even in school uniform. She imagined him inviting her to see his band playing at the up-and-coming school concert. Her daydream disappeared when the all-too-familiar morning call from her mum interrupted her thoughts. Katy! Time to get up! You'll be late again if you don't get a move on. Katy groaned, rolling out of bed. Why hadn't she got up earlier? There was no time to shower now. She picked her uniform up off the floor where it lay in a messy heap and quickly dressed. Still half asleep, she slammed her bedroom door behind her and raced down the stairs 2 at a time into the kitchen, where her mum waited. Katy, you look as though you slept in those clothes. How many times have I told you to hang them up? Get some breakfast quickly or you'll miss the bus again. Grabbing a piece of toast, Katy quickly waved goodbye to her mum and ran to catch the bus. Just as Katy reached the end of the road, she turned to see her annoying little brother chasing her down the street. Patrick ruled his year with his mad practical jokes. His unusual height made him slightly awkward, and his floppy blonde fringe obscured most of his face. His current obsession centred on science fiction, and he would bore you for hours given half the chance with his theories on time travel and parallel universes. As Katy and Patrick got on the bus, Katy spotted Lizzie. Her hair was smooth and shiny, and she even managed to look amazing in her pea green uniform. How does she do it, thought Katy, then quickly reminded herself that Lizzie probably hadn't dragged herself out of bed only moments earlier. Not even Lizzie could pull off the crinkled uniform look. Soon the bus pulled up outside the gates of St Hilda's, a large Edwardian building in the Gothic style, with hundreds of leaded windows and turrets and gargoyles. Everything about the school breathed old-fashioned, from its outdated science labs to its hideous pea-green uniform, complete with blazer. Until the 1990s, boys and girls had been kept apart. They had separate entrances, classrooms and playgrounds, even eating in separate dining halls. The morning kicked off with double science. Lesson 1 was a practical, and in Lesson 2 they had to write up their findings. Wake up, Lizzie. Have you put the magnesium in the test tube yet? Asked Lizzie, sounding more than a little tetchy. Katy rubbed her eyes. Oh, sorry, I'll do it now. I'm just so tired. My stupid dream woke me up at 6 again this morning. Katy picked up a bottle and haphazardly spooned some magnesium powder into the test tube, while Lizzie lit the Bunsen burner and said, Hold it over the flame until it begins to change colour. I'll be back in a minute. Yawning, Katy did as instructed. She stared, mesmerised, into the flame, and her surroundings seemed to melt away. A loud bang sounded, and as a white light flashed in front of her eyes, followed a strong smell of burning. Katy panicked and found herself once more in the midst of her dream. The screaming voice still called her name, getting louder and louder. Katy! Slowly, Katy shuddered back to the present, a cold sensation seeping over her body. Looking down, she saw her shirt was soaked through, and the bottom of her tie was singed. What happened? She asked, looking around in confusion and feeling more than a little bewildered. She looked at Lizzie, who was staring back at her in astonishment. Katy, you were on fire. Your tie was dangling in the flame. You didn't even notice. Katy shuddered. This was getting worse. Her dream no longer confined itself to her restless nights. It was now creeping into her waking hours. Katy, still startled, found her voice and whispered, It was my dream, Lizzie. The white light took me right back into the middle of it. I could even smell burning. Lizzie giggled. But that's because your tie was on fire, silly. You definitely need some sleep. Katy Parker, stay behind when the bell goes. An icy voice cut through the crowd. Katy looked up to see Miss Harrison glaring at her. I can't stay behind, whispered Katy desperately. I've got to meet Tom. Please, miss, said Lizzie, putting up her hand. It wasn't Katy's fault, it was mine. I must have put too much magnesium in it by accident. Miss Harrison stared at Lizzie in clear disbelief before replying, Very well, Lizzie. Write out the lab rules 50 times and hand them in to me in the morning. Phew, that was close. Lizzie to the rescue again. Lizzie and Katy had met on their first day at nursery and had immediately become best friends when Lizzie rescued Katy from Thomas Brown, a horrible, snotty little boy. Lots of people commented on the unlikely pairing. Lizzie neat and very studious, Katy the complete opposite, always scruffy with something ripped and in need of a wash and constantly daydreaming. But somehow they'd clicked and been inseparable ever since. As they left the science lab, Lizzie hugged Katy. Good luck. Meet me outside at lunch hall at 1. Don't be late. I'm desperate to know what's going on. Katy took a deep breath to calm herself and hurried excitedly to room 76, as instructed in the card. She still couldn't believe it. Could Tom Austin really want to meet her? Trembling all over and with butterflies swirling in her tummy, she took a deep breath, crossed her fingers for luck and entered the room. He wasn't there. Disappointment and relief flooded all over her. Checking her watch, she saw it was a few minutes early, so she dropped her bag to the ground, sat on the desk, legs swinging, waiting to see what would happen next. The room was ominously quiet. Not a sound could be heard, except for the slow, steady ticking of the clock on the classroom wall. Katy had just decided to give up and leave when she heard a noise coming from the stockroom. The door was slightly ajar, and it definitely sounded as if something was scuffling around inside. Then she heard an unmistakable snort of laughter. Silently sliding down from the table, Katy tiptoed over to the door and flung it open. To her horror, she found Patrick and his group of cronies doubled over in fits of laughter, enjoying her obvious embarrassment. Katy loves Tom, sang Patrick in a silly voice. Waiting for someone important, were you? He asked. Katy tried to hide the card, quickly slipping it into her pocket, but too late. Patrick had seen it. Did you really think someone like Tom Austin would be interested in you? Consumed by humiliation, Katy picked up her school bag and swung it at Patrick, hitting him hard in the stomach. I hate you, she shouted as Patrick winced, obviously winded but trying to appear unhurt. Turning to leave, she saw to dismay a group of onlookers had gathered at the classroom door to witness her shame. You'll be sorry, I'll get you back. Just you wait and see. Aware that tears were welling up in her eyes, Katy pushed her way through the crowd and ran for the safety of the girls' toilets, locked herself in a cubicle and burst into tears. She remembered a time when Patrick had been her partner in crime, before he turned into a monster whose greatest pleasure in life seemed to be annoying her. Moments later, the door of the toilets opened and Katy heard Lizzie's voice call out, Come out, Katy, I heard what happened. Reluctantly, Katy slid back the bolt. I hate him. I knew he was planning something because I got him grounded, but how could he be so mean? Lizzie passed Katy a tissue and squeezed her arm. Come on, try and forget about it. Don't let him see he's upset you. Okay, sniffed Katy, but you've got to help me get my own back. He'll live to regret this. Lizzie sighed. Okay, come on, let's see what we can plot in history. Katy enjoyed history. She loved being transported back in time and often imagined herself as a heroine in different historical settings. Her favourite was being a spy sent behind enemy lines during the Second World War to foil some evil Nazi plot. Katy sat with Lizzie as they listened to Mr. Oakley outline their work. Your project this half-term is to investigate the home front during the Second World War. The usual moans and groans followed. Ignoring this, Mr. Oakley continued. Try to find out what life was really like for people living in Knutsbury. You can research it on the web, use the local library, but it would be really good if you could interview locals who might have lived through the time and record their memories. There's a prize for the best project. Let's try and find out about Willow Dean, said Katy. It's been abandoned since the Second World War. Isn't it meant to be haunted? Asked Lizzie. Yeah, on Halloween everyone dares each other to knock on the door. Last year the doors meant to have swung open on the third knock and they could hear a child crying and calling for Mummy. Oh, that's horrible, breathed Lizzie. Do you think it's true? My mum says it's just a rumour that's been going around for years. Well, if we interview the locals about the war, someone's bound to know what's happened at Willow Dean and if it's really haunted. Let's start interviewing on Saturday. Katy squealed with excitement. I've got it. I know the perfect revenge. Let's go to Willow Dean and take Patrick with us. We can trick him into thinking the ghost's real. But how? Asked Lizzie. He's never going to believe that. Leaning in closer, Katy began to whisper her plan. Dad's away this weekend and Mum's working, so I'm stuck with Patrick. I'll suggest we go and investigate. He won't be able to resist, especially if I make out he's too scared to come with us. But how are we going to get inside? Said Lizzie. Well, apparently the side door's unlocked. We could give it a try. I'm not sure, Lizzie hesitated. I don't want to get into trouble. Don't worry, it's been empty for years. No one lives there, and it's not as if we're going to cause any damage. But I still don't see how we can make him think there's a ghost. Katy stared into space, concentrating hard, then smiled slyly as an idea began to take shape. We'll download the sound of a crying child onto your phone. You slip into the room ahead of us, leaving it time to come on a few moments later. We'll send Patrick into the room on his own, just before the crying starts. He'll be terrified. Ooh, you're nasty, Katy Parker. That's a great plan. Right, let's make a start on the front cover of our project. What shall we call it? How about The House That Cried, said Katy, dramatically beginning to draw large, jagged capital letters and colouring them in bold, blood red. The bell rang, signalling the end of the school day. I've got to go and get some stuff from my locker. See you on the bus. Okay, I'll try and save you a seat, but be quick. Climbing on the bus a few minutes later, Katy looked around for Lizzie and spotted her sandwiched in on the back seat with no one near her. Scanning on the bus for a spare seat, Katy saw to her dismay that the only remaining seat was next to her horrible little brother, who was using it for his precious guitar. With a hard stare on her face, Katy walked over to him. Move it, she demanded, pointing at the guitar. Realising Katy was in no mood to be messed with, Patrick pulled the guitar onto his lap. Desperate to avoid eye contact, they both sat in stony silence. Katy stared out of the window, waiting to see the old abandoned house. Willow Dean was a large detached house painted butter yellow with a deep crimson front door. It reminded Katy of a doll's house. It sat back from the road. A forbidding high yew hedge hid both the house and garden from clear view. But from her vantage point on the bus, Katy was able to peer over the hedge. The front garden looked like it might have once been an ornate rose garden. In the far corner in the shade stood a large weeping willow and a long abandoned swing and slide. Wrought iron gates stood imposingly at the entrance, but Katy had never seen anyone go through them. Turning to Patrick, she decided to sow the seeds of her revenge plan. Mum's working on Saturday and Dad'll be away all weekend, so I've got to look after you. Bet you're too scared to come and investigate Willow Dean. Lizzie and I are going to see if there's really a crying ghost child. Patrick didn't answer straight away. Katy could see he was torn between a desire to see inside the mysterious old house and a fear of what they might encounter if they did. Okay, count me in. I'm not scared. It's just an old house, nothing to be worried about. Katy hid her smile, and the rest of the journey passed in silence as she thought about the oncoming Saturday and their planned trip to the mysterious house that cried. End of chapter 1. So if you want to find out what happens when they get into the house and you're interested to find out if the ghost is real, let me know and I'll read chapter 2. Bye!